Iviwe, can you please tell us how do you finance your family trips?
Well, it's really a combination of saving and prioritizing traveling as a family. So there's
Mm,
certain things that we don't do as often as probably other people do. Like we don't buy ourselves and our kids expensive clothes,
mm,
and we don't shop for clothes that often, only obviously when it's necessary and we have to buy something. I mostly buy my kids stuff on sale, if I'm being honest. I go for the sales rack. I never know what's on season, what's on trend or whatever when it comes to
yeah.
my, even for me, I go
Yeah.
on the sales rack, and if I need leggings, I'm going to go on the sales rack and I'm going to see what they have on sale and I'm going to buy what's on there. So those are the things that we try to do as a family. We also don't go
Mm,
out as much for eat like restaurants and things like that. I think back when in South
yes.
Africa we used to go to Spur like on an
Okay.
occasion, like once in a while. That's like the
Yeah,
extent
yeah,
of
yeah.
our eating out in terms of restaurants. Yeah, and we just prioritize saving for our trips, making sure that we contribute every month to our savings account for a trip.
Wow. Okay, we're still gonna dig deeper. I'm still gonna ask more questions about that. But for now, I have icebreaker questions. So I'm gonna ask you three questions,
Okay.
and then you're going to respond with, you're just gonna choose one basically, okay?
Okay.
So choose one between spring and autumn.
Probably spring.
Okay. Um, what else can I ask you? Water or juice?
Water. Yeah, water, water. Definitely water.
Okay. Okay. And the last one, swim or run?
Oh, that one is a tough one.
Do you like both?
Uh, yeah, I actually do. I actually do. I
Okay.
do. I like to run and I love to swim. But maybe I'll say swimming over the running.
Swimming.
Only because I'm not good at like super long distance. So I can do like a
Okay.
5K. I can do like maybe 10 tops. But for
Yeah.
swimming, I can swim the whole day until I'm like exhausted.
Is it?
Yeah, so
And you don't
maybe
get
let's
tired.
let's
And
say
swimming is
swimming.
very tiring.
Yeah, I know. But I
Swimming
can
is
stay
really
just
tiring.
under. If I was able to hold my breath for like 10 minutes, I would just stay under the
Yeah.
water the whole time.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. Interesting. Interesting. So thank you, Iviwe, for joining me today on today's episode. Hi, guys. Welcome to my channel. Today I have Iviwe, and we'll be talking about traveling as a family. She's going to be sharing she's going to share her journey with us. And I just have a few house rules to address first before we jump into the questions, that if people want to maybe ask questions or they want to comment or anything, they are welcome to leave the comments in the comment section. And if you want to connect with Iviwe, I will leave all her contact details in the description box. So if you want to follow her, you want to see all the amazing trips that they do together as a family, you're welcome to follow her. And other than that, please write the comments and comment about something, just comment about what she's going to say, ask questions if you want to ask questions. And yeah, I can't wait for this. I'm looking forward to this episode. If you were, I've learned so much from your page, but I think people are going to enjoy this interview and see exactly what you do as a family. So without further ado, let me just ask you to just tell us about your motherhood journey.
All right, yeah. My motherhood journey. So I got married in 2017.
Okay.
Then we went on our honeymoon to Mauritius. I think after that trip was when we decided that this traveling thing is cool. Like we need to do more of
Yeah,
it
yeah.
and stuff. Yeah.
Yes.
And then yeah, I found out I was pregnant like super early on, and we had
Mm,
planned to go on a Euro trip. So when I went on my Euro trip, I was like 3 months pregnant with my
okay.
daughter. Went on our Euro trip, then came back, and we obviously had to like now think about it. Okay, we really love this traveling thing, but like now we have a kid
Yes.
coming. Like, how are we gonna
Yeah.
incorporate that with our lifestyle and make sure that she's comfortable as well?
Yes.
Lucky, I'm not gonna lie, we really were lucky to get Melodies as our first child, because she made the whole experience like super easy. I feel like if it was the other way
Yeah.
around, if it was my son first and then her after, it would not be the same way. He's a little bit more challenging.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
But with
At least
her,
she is you into motherhood.
yeah, so for her it was like very much,
Mm,
she's very similar to me. She's very outgoing. She loves to find like new experiences. So she integrated very easily with us and our stuff. And having to travel and things like that. We took her to her first trip. We went to Zanzibar with her when she was 2 years old. And
mm,
like, yeah, she was like such an easy baby to travel with. My son, on the other hand, cried the whole time when we went on our first international trip with him. So that's what I'm saying. Like, we really got lucky to have her as a first experience with her. With that, it
mm.
was very easy. But also, like, even before, I think when she was like 3 months old, we flew with her
Yeah.
from Joburg to PE, and she slept the whole
Okay.
way. There wasn't that much stress. I think, yeah, in terms of like my daughter, like traveling with her was a breeze. I'm not gonna lie, it wasn't like anything hard, and she just loves to
Yeah.
like play games, do puzzles and things like that, so it's
Yeah.
very easy to
Yeah.
keep her occupied, you know. But then
Yeah.
we had the second
Oh,
kid and we're like, oh, like now we have even more of a challenge. Now there's a second child, and this one won't sit down and color, you know. He just doesn't, he
yes,
doesn't
yes,
do stuff
yes.
like that. He doesn't want to color the whole time. He doesn't want to play with his figurines or whatever. So a little bit more of a challenge with him. But yeah, I feel like as parents, me
Mm.
and my husband are like very easygoing, very like chilled people also. So I think they kind of like feed off of that energy. They're not like, oh, like what's happening now? Like we try to prepare them
Yeah.
as much as we
Yeah. Yeah.
can, and then just kind of like take it as it goes. I mean, kids will be kids at the end of the day, but I
Mm.
think if you approach the situation and not put too many expectations out of the whole
Mm.
experience, because you know sometimes as adults will, like if you go into a situation where there's a lot of adults will assume that the kids should know how to behave,
Mm.
but actually
Yeah.
we as adults should understand that kids don't know the etiquettes, they don't know the proper way of behaving at an airport or however that is.
Mm. Mm.
So yeah, if you put too much pressure on that, and there are going to be people sometimes who are going to like say something like we were
Yeah.
at an airport and there was a kid who was playing like on the side and he was making noise, and obviously because we parents, we're just like whatever, but then this like old man walked up to the mom and like yelled something in their ear. Luckily the mom was like French, so she didn't understand what he was even saying. But like there will
Mm.
be people who feel like kids don't have a space in society, but I
Yeah.
think
Oh.
majority of the people understand that kids are just kids, and if you're in a public space, some kids don't do well with it and some people are accommodating to that. So
Yeah.
integrating travel and motherhood, for us was like very important, because we knew even though we had kids, we had to
Mm.
continue that part of our lives and
Wow.
hopefully raise kids who will also fall in love with travel. There's no guarantee, right? There's no guarantee.
Yeah.
They
Yeah.
might just hate traveling. They might just hate being on a plane. But we tried as much as we
Yeah.
can to integrate something that we both love doing and introduce it to them very gradually. I might add, it wasn't a
Yeah.
situation where we just accepted them like, oh, you now can go on like a 20-hour flight or whatever, you know.
Yes. Yes. Yes.
It was
Yes.
something
Yes.
that we gradually introduced to them and made sure that okay, they go on. I mean, Joburg to Durban is like an hour. We did quite a few of those,
Yes.
visiting family, making sure that it's they can sit down for an hour, then stretching it over to 2 3 hours, and
Yeah.
eventually longer flights. So yeah.
Oh wow. Oh, that sounds like a fairy tale. It does sound like a fairy tale. How what is the age gap between your kids?
Okay, so Melody, my daughter, she is now 5 years old, turning
Okay.
6 at the end of the year. And then my son, Micah, he is 3 years old, turning 4 at the end of the year. So they're about
So it's
2 years, I think. Yeah,
two and a
up
half.
a year
Oh,
and some change. Yeah, they actually 12 days
oh
apart in terms on their birthdays.
is
12 days
it?
apart.
Oh,
Yeah.
interesting. Okay, okay. I like how you explain everything and you make it sound or make it seem so easy. Like I follow you on Instagram and I always see your post, I'll see this
Mhm.
post. I'm like, wow, I've been following you for years, seeing
Yeah.
all the trips that you go with your family. It's so inspiring. But also for someone it's like, but how,
Mm.
And before maybe we get to the how, can you just I know you've touched on this briefly, but why did you and your husband decide to travel with your family or with your kids especially?
Yeah, I don't know. Like honestly, in the beginning, for sure, we didn't think about it that much because it was just the two of us. So we went. Our first trip together was to Mozambique. We got engaged there, and then we went on our
Yeah.
honeymoon to Mauritius, and we had such great fun there. And then we went to the Euro trip together before the kids came. So in that experiences, we knew that we wanted to travel more. We knew that we wanted to experience being outside of South Africa, exploring different parts of the world. So, and then we went on our Euro trip together. So we went to Paris, we went
Okay.
to Brussels, and then we went to Amsterdam. And we knew this is something we like doing. And obviously, we were being in Joburg, we're far away from our families. Like my family is from the Eastern Cape and in Margate, and his family is in Durban. So we knew if we wanted to take
Okay.
trips when we have kids, like what are we gonna do? We can't leave the kids on their own, like unless we want to go drop them off in Durban and then travel on
Yes.
our own, which yeah, is
Yes.
just too much work. And also, we wanted them to be
Yeah.
part of the journey, we wanted them to be part of the stories because we love to tell
Mm.
our stories, to each other. We always saying, remember when this happened? You remember when we got lost in Paris and we had to use an actual map to get around
Mm.
because our phones had died and we had no Wi-Fi,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
things like that. It's like really nice memories.
Yeah.
And we wanted our kids to also grow up with those memories. And they actually like
Wow.
remember so many things. Like my daughter is only 5, but she remembers when we went to Egypt. She remembers like seeing the pyramids. She remembers like
Mm.
we were on a horse, but the horse kept farting the whole time.
Yeah.
So, stuff like that. Like that's like a memory. Like, oh mom, you remember the farting horse we were on in Egypt? So we wanted them to
Yeah.
grow up with those cool memories so that we're not
Yeah.
telling them like this is what we experienced, this is what we did, but they were actually there.
Mm.
So we
Mm.
knew that they would have to be part of this whole journey that we wanted to go on as well. And
Wow.
the only way to do that is to make sure that they have as much exposure as possible to things that pertain to travel, that from like the toys that they play with, from the books that they
Mm.
read, the documentaries that we watch or the films that we watch. So yeah, we wanted them to actually like be part of our stories and grow up with these memories along with us. Not have them secondhand
Mm.
told to them. So that's one of the
Mm.
reasons that we wanted to experience. And this is something that we didn't even think like about ever leaving SA. We just knew that we were going to travel with our kids. We're going to go on trips with them, and yeah, that was the
Yeah.
goal for us to just go on holiday. When we have holidays, we go together. We have
Yes.
them experience the different cultures and different people, and then come back home, and we'll plan our next trip and the next trip and it like that. That was the plan.
Yeah. Wow. I like what you're saying that basically you wanted them to be part of your story. So you
Yeah.
wanted them to be there, not. And it's so sad, when we as parents, when I'm saying we, I'm not just necessarily talking about me and you, but parents, when we want to exclude our kids. So it's almost like
Mm.
our children are a distraction to our lives, to our precious
Yeah.
lives, our precious lives, and whenever they,
Yeah.
they they come asking things or when they need help, it's like they're interrupting us and they're derailing us from this whatever goal that we're trying to achieve. And that is sad.
Mm-hmm.
And especially as mothers, I feel we feel that pressure more than, I don't know if fathers feel the same, but as mothers we feel that pressure a lot, that society expects so much from us that
Yeah.
sometimes people end up hating their own children because they feel like they're like the hindrance to their success, whether in their careers or
Mm.
in their business or in their traveling or in their marriage. So I like
Yeah.
what you're saying, that you and your husband decided that you wanted them to be part of the story. You didn't want to tell them the story that this is what we saw in Egypt, so they were there experiencing that with you. That is
Mm-hmm.
so beautiful, Iviwe. That is so beautiful, for family memories and for your
Yeah.
children as well. And
Exactly.
what are the benefits of traveling with children, if I may ask? And I'm asking this just traveling as a parent, but also as a homeschool parent, that, we try to expose our children to different environments, to see different things and so forth. And I may have my own reasons, but someone might be asking, but why travel with a child? Because they might not remember, like people say, oh, they will not remember where they've been, or they will cause an inconvenience. There's just so much to consider when you're traveling with children. It's unlike when it's just you and your spouse. What are the
Right.
benefits of traveling with children?
My gosh, I think there's so many benefits. Like, just to begin with, like the switch that happens when the kids know the real life elephants. Like, for example, like when we went to the
Yeah.
Kruger, when my
Mm.
kids look at an elephant in a picture or a giraffe or a
Mm.
crocodile, whatever it is, the fact that they've seen it, they've known it, they've actually physically seen it with their own eyes, it's such a different
Mm.
experience. Because for me, growing up, I had this concept
Mm.
like this, like kind of like, I don't know, vague idea of what these animals are and what they could
Yeah.
potentially look like, because I would watch documentaries, I would read books and things like that,
Mm.
but I didn't actually physically see them, you know.
Mm.
I
Mm.
think
Mm.
just the way they learn, their ability to learn things and the knowledge that they have is based on actual like experiences of them seeing the animals,
Wow.
experiences being in the plane, actually being in the
Mm.
plane and seeing how everything works and seeing how people are in the world, how people interact. And we always
Mm.
try to teach our kids to like observe social um, situations, you know, like how, oh, look at, we go in a grocery shop, for example, or a restaurant or
Yeah.
wherever in another country, in the Reunion Island or whatever, we go to a grocery shop and we always say, do you see how these people are shopping? Just like when we at Pick and Pay, you know? Those are the things
Mm.
that they kind of like notice. They'll say, oh, these people are doing what we do at home, like kind of just seeing like how society, regardless of location, certain things are kind of like very much the same. You know. And in
Mm.
that way they learning to interact with different kids. If we go to a playground in whatever place that we're in, playing with those kids that
Yes.
probably don't speak the same language with them, but they for some
Yeah.
reason just playing with them and just interacting with
Yeah.
them, those kinds of things, just having just an open kind of mind on worldview that is kind of very different from
Mm.
how we grew up, for sure. I know for me, I had to
Yeah.
do a lot of imagining of things, like I would see things on
Yeah.
TV and I would
Yeah.
imagine myself doing it. Whereas
Yeah.
for
Yeah.
them, it's a completely different situation where they have actually been in there and they experienced it. They say, oh my goodness, I was there.
Mm.
Like if we're watching a movie and the pyramids come up and my daughter's like, oh my gosh, mommy, this is where we
Mm.
were. Those are things that are tangible and in their
Wow.
memory. And I think a lot of the times as adults, we underestimate how much kids remember, or the formative years of the
Mm.
kids. We think, oh,
Yeah.
this kid will never remember. But I know
Yeah.
how much my kids remember. Like certain things, just
Mm.
random things, just stick in their minds
Mm.
at 3 years
Mm.
old, and they just remember it. Like my 3-year-old, he'll remember his grandparents' dog and he'll talk about his grandparents' dog. Like very vivid memories about like when he was there
Mm.
playing with it. So I think sometimes we think the kids won't remember, but there is things that have a lasting effect on the kids. And more than
Mm.
anything, not really about the memories per se, but like I'm
Yeah.
saying, like learning to be in society, learning empathy, learning to be kind, learning to interact
Mm.
with different kinds of people, people that don't speak the same language as you, being saying good morning, say thank you. Those are the things. And
Mm.
regardless of where we are, those are the things that we want them to grow up knowing, doing anywhere in the world. So I think
Wow.
that kind of like translates to them having such a different experience of life. And
Mm.
that is definitely
Definitely.
beneficial, yeah, for them at school, in terms of like, yeah, the formative years, those the things that they choose to keep in their minds, hopefully,
Mm.
are informed by the environment that they grew up in and the experiences that they grew up in. Yeah.
Yes. Oh, nice. Okay. So if you've been postponing traveling with your children, thinking maybe they're too young, they're not. You'll never
They're
know
not.
what they will, yeah, what they
And
will
also
learn
those
in that
memories are for
journey.
you as well, you know, as a mom and as a
Mm.
dad. Sometimes, especially with the busy lives, there's certain things that
Yes.
you'll miss, you know. But when you go on
Mm.
holiday, you kind of slow down, the days kind of feel longer, and you know,
Mm.
kids
You're
will talk to
right.
you and they say, Yazi, Mama, I know how to do this now. And maybe you missed that they learned how
Mm.
to write their name or color
Mm.
something or certain things. And because the
Yeah.
days are so slow, and we tend to like when we're on holiday, yes, we'll take photos and things, but most of the time we are together. We
Yes.
book like a family kind of room, so we sleep in the same kind of area. We'll have to do like
Yeah.
games at night together. Then you're finding out
Mm.
the kids has like vocabulary you didn't even know they have, you know. You slow down a little bit and
Mm.
have way more family time, and so you can
Wow.
kind of catch up on the things that you might have missed when it was like, you know, routine. You know, sometimes when we're in
Mm.
the routine, we know, okay, we wake up, go to school, go to
True.
work, come back,
Very
get
true.
ready for the next day, and everything is very
Yes.
much like the
Task,
same
and
every
you're
day,
very
fast
right.
paced.
You end up focusing on the task that we need to
Mm,
do this and this and that, and then
yeah.
now it's bedtime, good night,
Yeah.
and you might miss that opportunity to focus on each other as a family.
Yeah.
That's that's beautiful. I want us to go back a little bit. um the first question, we spoke about money, and I liked how you presented it, because you did not just say hey, this is what we do. We take certain amount from our salary and you save. You said that your lifestyle. So you said something about the clothes that you buy, the basically the decisions that you take as a family, that it's all integrated before it gets to the money that you save. Can you just go back just to that point again? Like how do you identify those areas to focus, or I don't know, the areas where you can save money or where you can focus on as a family to minimize spending there and so forth.
Yeah.
And also when it comes to prioritizing, but I think you just said now, since this was a decision and your husband, it's obviously like a top of your list of your priorities. So this is a
Yeah.
priority to you. And can you just reverse a little bit to that point?
Yeah, I think every family, like, unless you guys are making millions of dollars a month and then you don't care, you can just like, I don't know,
We
fly
need
your
to spend this
private
money.
jet anywhere in the world. You kind of have to like prioritize it, you know? It's like
Yes.
the same thing as if you want your kids to go to private school. You know that majority of your money will go to tuition, you know?
Mm,
You have
mm,
to sit down
mm,
and say, this is something that we want to make a priority. What are we going to sacrifice? Because they're going to have to be sacrifices for any like
mm.
working class family. You're going to have to sacrifice certain things that might
Yes.
seem a bit and crazy to other people or unnecessary, but you have to
Mm,
decide for yourself, what are we willing to do or what are we not willing to do, you know? Like some
mm.
people will prioritize getting the latest car or the latest phone.
Yeah.
If
Yes.
that's what you want to do, then good on you, then you'll prioritize having that. But like I mentioned, for us, we have prioritized travel, so we eliminate
Mm.
things like upgrading. Also, like as it just came back to my upgrading your phone every year, like things that are
Yeah,
when
yeah.
it's still fully
Unnecessary.
functional. We're not like gonna go in and be like, we need to
Yes.
get the latest phone now
Yeah.
because this is what is in, or we want to get the latest car. Anything
Mm.
that's practical that can take my kids to school, take me to work,
Yes.
be happy with it, you know. So there's
Mm.
certain things that you would have to sacrifice, or maybe not sacrifice, but like eliminate from your from your life, based on the fact that it
Yeah.
doesn't serve your greater goal. It doesn't serve
Wow.
your greater purpose on what you want to do. That's, yeah, that's just how it's gonna go. Unless, like I said, you're making millions of dollars and you don't care and it
Yes.
doesn't matter.
Yes. Yes. No, you've answered me. You've answered me nicely. Now let's go back to the practical side now. Fine. Let's say someone's like, okay, if you, I hear you, I'm going to start traveling with my children. But how do you then deal with tantrums or grumpiness? And, like kids are kids. I think you made
Yeah,
an
it's
example
gonna
with another
happen.
child at the airport. So those things are going to happen regardless of the location. And you
Yep.
might plan, a nice family holiday,
Hmm.
and the child just wake up and they're just not feeling it, and they
Yeah.
throw tantrums and they are grumpy. How do you manage all those things when traveling with your
Yeah.
kids?
Yeah, you know, honestly, that's part of like a daily kind of discipline thing, I think. If the kids understand, okay, this is the boundaries, this is, sometimes they don't, but if they do understand to a greater extent, that this is how we work, or where we when we're going to do something, you kind of give them like responsibilities. You carry this, you do this. That's what we sometimes do,
Mm,
to give them motivation. So they've got their little
okay.
bags, you carry your bag, you carry this, and we're going here, we're doing this, and have like a clear plan of what's happening, and be like, in 5 minutes we're going to go to the gate now, in 10
Yes.
minutes we're doing this, you know, kind of
Yes.
thing, where it's
Mm,
like very structured, and then they know they role and they don't feel like they're just wandering around. We've never had a delay
mm,
in flight before. Then we had one in Frankfurt where it was like so many hours and we are just sitting around. That one was hard because we've never actually had one. And my son was just
yeah.
exhausted at that point. He fell asleep eventually while I
Mm,
was holding him. But
yeah.
yeah, I'm not gonna lie. That one is kind of like, this is how you discipline. And also sometimes you have to bribe them. I'm sorry, like I do it. I'm just like, if you can sit
Yeah.
down for like 20 minutes, you're gonna get a chocolate. You know, I'll do
Yeah.
it. If I feel like if I feel like, you know, I can't handle it now, it's a lot, I'll be
Yeah.
like, in 10
Like I need.
minutes, I will give you a chocolate. Just sit down there. Then they sit down and then they're gonna, you know, give them an incentive. Like when I go hiking with my kids, like people think that my kids, like sometimes my daughter is really good. She's good. She'll do 6Ks or sometimes
Mm,
10Ks. But it's
wow.
not just like organic sometimes. You have to kind of say, okay,
Yes.
give them kind of milestones. She really likes when I track her with my phone and say, now you've done 1K, now you've done 2K, you know? So you can give them kind of like incentives and stuff on, so that they can be interested in doing things like that. And there's a mom
Mm.
on Instagram that skis with her kids. And what she said is that on ski days, she will have special snacks for the kids that they don't usually have at home, to give them on ski
Yeah.
days, to give them an incentive to be excited to do
Mm.
the runs and everything. So you can
Yeah.
do things to just like incentivize a little bit, to motivate them, to encourage them, or just like coloring something that has to do with where they're going, letting them
Oh,
watch something that has
yeah.
to do with where they're going to keep them excited. Because to kids, 10 minutes is like 5 days.
Yeah, it's a lot.
Like, mom, we've been
Yes.
waiting here for so long. So you have to kind of like
Yeah.
keep them motivated, and tantrums happen. Like, honestly, there's nothing you can do. You deal with a
Mm.
tantrum how you deal with it at home, and hope that
Mm.
they calm down at some point. There's really nothing you
Mm.
can do. It's part of it, and eventually they get used to it. That's why I'm saying you have to do it in kind of in a gradual manner,
Yeah.
where they learn how to behave or how to enjoy the experience over time. It will not happen overnight. Some kids really
Mm.
don't like flying, and you have to just find something that can comfort them. I know some kids go with their blankets and
Yeah.
some comfort toys and things like that. We don't have to do that,
Yes.
luckily. But if you have to do that, if they need like the dummy to fly, whatever, make sure that you
Mm.
make them comfortable with the experience. And eventually, believe it or not, it will get to the point where they go in and they sit on their chair, and
Yeah.
they will sit for 5, 6, 7 hours and occupy themselves and play games and watch a movie, whatever. And it's worth it.
Yeah.
Once they get to that
Wow.
point, then it's worth it. You're like, oh, I can sleep. I can take a nap.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And I think that's also good for for their concentration span as well, because
Yeah, exactly.
those doing those tasks, like you said, gradually they they increase their concentration span, which is good for them for learning anything basically. So it's good for their development as well. Okay, if you were, can we now talk about sleep? It's one thing traveling with kids and having fun and doing all the things that you wouldn't do on a normal day-to-day routine. But as parents, we are concerned with our children's sleep patterns
Yeah.
and just sleep, basically. Most parents work when their children are sleeping, and you wouldn't want to disturb that when you're traveling and so forth. How do you ensure that, um, or how do you manage a healthy sleep routine for your children?
Yeah, that one we've always been very strict about. So
Okay.
since like 6 months old, being able to sleep on their own and all of that. Because I am a very grumpy person if I don't get enough sleep.
Yeah.
So sleep was something I had to like get sorted as soon as I can. So
Yeah.
they've always had a routine, and regardless where we are, we always have a bedtime 8 o'clock. So luckily for me and my husband, we are very much morning people. So we do most things in the morning. And that really helps.
Oh.
If you wake up early in the morning, get there, you're first in line, there's less of a crowd. So most of our activities and things we always plan very early in the morning. So when the kids wake up at 7, straight up and then do the day activities, then we kind of wind down as the day goes past, then they can relax, and by the
Mm.
time it's bedtime, which is like 7 p.m, starting the routine and everything, and then bedtime at 8 in the pajamas, and yeah, bedtime. And regardless of where we've been, even if
Mm.
there's a slight time difference, we always keep to that. So we'll wake up, plan our activities, do everything during the day, kind of wind down as the day goes, and then get into the bedtime routine where they have their bath,
Mm.
story time, and then bedtime. And then they go to bed and they sleep.
Mm.
We've actually never had an issue with that routine, even when we changed time zones now. Because when we moved here, it was basically like, it was like a 9 hour difference. So when we
Okay.
did that switch, we just kept basically to the same hours that we used to. Even if sometimes they would wake up and they didn't, there was a time of struggling when they would wake up at like 3 a.m. because obviously to them that's like
Mm.
the South African time kind of kicking in
Oh,
the
yeah, yeah, yeah.
morning. We just try to
Yeah.
keep the room dark and say, you know what, just fall back to sleep, and eventually the
Mm.
pattern grows like that. So we've always been very, very strict with sleep time, and we try as much as
Mm.
we can to keep it literally like 7 to 8 p.m, regardless of the time difference, regardless of the time zone. I bought some blackout shades thing from Amazon that also helps.
Okay.
So if it's still like
Okay.
light outside, they like stick on the wall, and you can cut them to the size of of the window, and you stick it on there, and it
Okay.
makes the room dark. That helps sometimes. But
Okay.
just yeah, we've always been very strict in terms of time, and also we're not night people anyway. It's not like we're trying to get to do
Mm.
things at 11 p.m. and they're like awake and we're trying to go.
Yeah.
We also
Yeah.
ourselves are gonna go to bed maybe an hour
Mm.
later. So we've always kept
Mm.
that strict time, sleeping time for them. And honestly, yeah, we've never had a problem with they sleeping. Right now, though, they sleep in the same room as us, which was not the case when we were at home. They had their own
Mm.
room, which they were sharing together. But now I think we felt like this was such a change and it was so drastic and it's so far from everything. We just wanted them to
Yeah.
feel a bit of comfort. So we bought them like a bunk bed and they sleep in the same room as
Mm.
us for the time being.
Yeah.
But I think next year, once they get a little bit more used to everything, then they can go back to the routine we had back at home where they had their own bedroom together. But
Mm.
yeah, I
Yeah.
think it's very, very important because you have to think about this. If you're planning an activity during the day and you
Yeah.
have a grumpy kid who hasn't slept, it's gonna go bad
Mm.
for the whole family.
Oh yeah,
It really,
definitely.
really will bad for the whole family. No one is gonna have a good time. The kid was gonna be tired, exhausted, throwing tantrums, and just like not enjoying the whole experience. So
Yes.
bedtime has to be like, I know in holidays, sometimes you're in the holiday mood, you want to stay up late, you
Yeah.
want to watch movies,
Yeah.
you want to just
Yeah.
relax. But I
Yeah.
think you have to think about if you play, especially if you have an activity planned the following morning. I think if it's like a chill day, like maybe you're at the beach or whatever, then they can nap whenever, then you can push it sometimes, maybe 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock
Yeah.
bedtime. But if you know you're doing something during the day, you have to like facilitate that sleep time. And if
Yeah.
the kid needs warm milk, a dummy or a blanket or a toy or whatever, then you can give them that. But like, I don't know,
Yeah.
maybe I have like strange kids. My kids have never been attached to like toys, like, oh, I'm
Yeah.
gonna sleep
Yeah.
with this doll tonight, or I like this blanket. They just use whatever. They don't have
Yeah.
like those
Yeah.
personal items or something, I can say.
Yeah.
So
Mm.
for us, it's like, okay, it's bedtime. They go on and sleep, however that means. But yeah, it's really, really important, especially if you're gonna be doing things with them the whole day. You need them. You have to have that routine. A bit, I mean, obviously they're on holiday. You don't want to be too hectic about it, but you definitely need to make sure that they have a good night rest so that they can actually
Yeah.
enjoy the day themselves. Yeah.
Mm. 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 So you must have a plan. So you go there with a
Yeah, you have to
plan
have
as a
your
parent.
routine. Yeah, some kids,
Yeah.
like I'm saying, they like personal items. Like my kids, they get when they do their bedtime routine. I don't know, maybe it's like because they're used to it. It's like it's already they start to get tired, they start to yawn. They know, okay, I've just taken a bath. You
Yeah.
get to warm into your pajamas. It's bedtime.
Yeah.
Those are the things. Even though you don't have the physical elements of like this is your bed, you're not you at home, and you don't
Yeah.
have that comfort, but
Yes. Yes.
they're
Yes.
wearing their pajamas that they always wear. They go out of the warm bath into their pajamas into bed, and then that kind of creates an environment where they want to fall asleep. And yeah.
Mm, okay. If you keep on touching when we were home, and maybe someone who's watching, they confused, like, what do you mean when you were home? If we were is somewhere else, on the other side of the world, but we're gonna get to that. We're gonna get to that just now. I like what you're saying that as a parent, you must have a plan basically, and you must stick to that routine even when you're on holiday, and you're not only doing it for yourself, but you're also doing it for the child. So they need that sleep, and you're
Mm.
also doing it for yourself in a way, because
Yeah,
the
in a
following
way.
day,
Yeah,
the
you're doing it
following
for the
day, you
whole
won't have a
family.
grumpy child. You won't
Yeah.
have a grumpy child. So it's a win-win situation.
Exactly.
Yeah, so you're hitting two birds with one stone.
One stone at
And
the moment.
discipline and
So,
boundaries, I think it goes hand in hand with that. Like, how do you ensure that there's consistent discipline and boundaries when you're traveling with your children?
yeah, I mean, I don't know. Kids will try to embarrass you. They like every time they're outside, it's like a different child. They try to like show you a side of them. You're like, who is this? They will try to
Yeah,
embarrass you because they see, okay, we're not at home. Maybe I can
yeah,
get away with this. Maybe I can get
yeah.
away with that. And especially at this age, and like I said, my kids don't have like attachment things to things. You can't say I'm taking away your game or I'm taking away this. They don't have those
Mm,
personalities where they're like, oh, I'm gonna be so upset if you take this away.
yes.
So yeah, it's challenging in the fact that I don't have like things like that to do, but also not as challenging because what can I say, they tend to listen to me and my husband, like when we talk to them, we say, you know what, this is not good, like we're gonna leave, you know, if you're not behaving yourself, we'll have to go home, or we'll have to leave this place, because you need to, yeah, you need to behave a certain
Mm.
way in certain places. And if we feel like maybe one of the things that you do with kids, you have to have some kind of flexibility sometimes, you know, you
Yes,
can plan an activity and everyone is excited to go, and maybe when you get there it doesn't go as how you envisioned it to
as
go.
planned.
Yeah,
Yes,
I
yes.
think we have to be a little bit more flexible and say, you know what, maybe not today. Like maybe today is not the day that we do this particular activity, you know. And
Mm.
so yeah, that's one way maybe to just like kind of instill discipline, to show them that look, if you don't, if there's certain activity that we planned and you feel like you don't want to participate, then we'll
Yeah.
have to not do it, we'll have to just not do it for this day, and you'll
Mm.
miss out on the opportunity to be in this thing, you know. And
Mm.
understand that certain things you'll have to sit down for long periods, for certain things you'll have to listen or not shout, or whatever the case may be, or
Yeah, yeah.
walk in an orderly manner, or whatever it is. It takes time, I'm not going to lie, it really does take time.
Yeah, I can
You just have.
imagine. I can imagine. It's also not easy for a parent as well, because y- there will be people staring at you. And whatever that you are thinking that this is what I need to do as a parent, you're like thinking also there are also people looking at what you're
Yeah,
going to do. So I think it's also not easy for a parent when you're
yeah,
outside your comfort zone.
yeah. Oh, the stairs never end though. Like honestly, I think the
Yeah,
staring
it
part, it
doesn't,
never stops. It really never
right?
stops. People will
I
always be
always think
staring.
people stare because I have a lot of children. So
Even if you had one, trust me, they will be staring at you for some reason. I don't know. I don't know how it works. I think,
yeah.
yeah, you just have to just, yeah, you like have the confidence and knowing your kids and knowing how they listen to you when you're at home. And that's the
Mm,
thing also, like if you're going to discipline your kids differently when you're outside of the home, they're not going to take to
mm,
that. So, like I was
yeah.
saying, everything has to come from the house, like how you interact and talk to them at
Mm,
home. And when they're in public, it's the same exact kind of discipline and boundaries. It comes from the house.
mm,
And so they will be able to understand, okay, mommy is not happy with this. She's upset about this. There's some, like, we
yeah.
can't do this. You can't just like all of a sudden now, you know, you like when I grew up, like when we were in public, like my grandmother or someone in my family would be like trying to, Micah, stop that, darling. They'll try and be like trying to talk to you about something, and they'll be talking under their breath. Like, don't do that. Just like, but
Yes,
at
yes.
home, you don't talk to me like that. So I'm not gonna be able to take that as you being serious. You know what I mean? Like at home, when you're trying to
Yeah.
say, "Hey, listen, this is not good," like, and so sometimes we want to, like, maybe like you're saying with the stairs and everything, we want to change our
Mm,
parenting style based on like our environment, but that really
yeah.
confuses the kids. So whatever style of
Mm,
parenting and discipline and boundaries that you instill in your
mm,
kids in your house, just do the exact same thing. That's the only way they'll listen.
mm.
I mean, they listen to you at home.
Yeah,
Micah,
yeah.
Micah, stop it, please. My gosh, this is what happens when people
Okay.
come back from school. I
It's
don't know why
life.
he's dragging the chair now.
It's life.
Take it just now.
I'm just lucky because mine are asleep now. But it's life. It's part of our
Let me
life,
just
eh?
take his chair. He wants his chair. So yeah, you just want to keep the same energy that you give at home. Same thing in public.
Yeah,
Which is why it's
yeah,
important when you are disciplining your kids at home. It's obviously not something that is going to be abusive and something that in public people are going to frown upon, you know. So keep the same energy, but don't, if you smack your kid at home, just be aware that people are going to look at you.
yeah,
You know,
yeah,
but I'm
yeah,
just saying
yeah,
the good way of disciplining is just keeping it consistent so that the kids are not confused, like how come
yeah,
mama outside, or when we hear mama is different but when we're at home
yeah.
she's different. Yeah, that's the only
Yeah,
way.
I was thinking about that, when I was preparing those questions, that consistency, like how do you but I like your response. I like your response that you just keep it consistent. Whatever that you do at home is what you do even when you're outside, because you're
Mhm.
still the mother. They're still your children, so
Yeah,
nothing has changed,
I mean
So
obviously less intense because you're on holiday too, like you don't want to be stressed out,
yes,
but
yes,
yeah.
yes, yes. But still, they know that what is wrong at home is still wrong
It's
here.
still wrong. Exactly,
Mm,
Cassandra.
mm. Okay, now if you were when someone maybe just listened to this and they are inspired to start traveling with their children, but now they're like, where do we start? Like, where can someone start traveling with their children? We know now it's a good thing for them, for us, for our family memories, and for everything, right? And you've also shared how we can save for those trips, and how what things that we can think about, things that we need to change maybe in our lifestyles to make sure that we prioritize accordingly to traveling and also have funds for that. But where do you start now? Where
Where
does
do we
someone start?
start? Honestly, South Africa is the most like we have such a beautiful country that caters to so many different things. And that's the thing with travel. You go to places that make you relax, right? You go to places that
Yeah.
you enjoy. If you like food, you go to places where you can have food. If you like nature, you go to places where there's a lot of nature. If you like the beach,
Yes.
if you know, that kind of thing. And we're so lucky in South Africa to have a country that literally like has everything. We have all of those things. So I would say start at home, start in South Africa, have
Mm.
a road trip, go see one of the most beautiful places in Mpumalanga, go see
Mm.
the coast in Durban, swim in the Indian Ocean. Like we have
Mm.
some of the best beaches in the world. Like some beaches in the world, you can't even swim, it's freezing.
Yeah, yeah,
There's
yeah,
no sand,
yes.
it's all pebbles, you know? So
Yeah.
start at home and fall in love with whatever area that you want to explore more of. If you want to try, let's
Mm.
say, you really love Asian food, there's a
Yeah.
Chinatown in Joburg. Fly your family to Joburg, stay at a hotel in Joburg, visit the Chinatown, taste the food, and see how it is. And then, yeah, that will spark maybe an idea to say, okay, maybe next year, since we've tasted the food here in South Africa, maybe we can go to Thailand, maybe we can go to Taiwan and go taste more of the food that we
Mm.
enjoy. So it's really,
Mm.
really important to just kind of test the waters with like shorter trips, shorter flights. Even outside a little bit of South Africa, Mozambique, super
Yeah.
close to us. We drove the first time we went there. It's beautiful, nice soft
Mm.
beaches, very nice and warm water, very lovely
Mm.
people. If you're scared of like people that maybe you don't understand the language, yeah, there's a language barrier. I mean, go somewhere in Africa, go to Botswana,
Mm.
go to
Mm.
Mozambique, go to Swaziland. Those places are so beautiful. Lesotho, if you wanna experience snow and you're wondering, will I be able to handle snow if I go to Europe? Go
Yeah.
to Lesotho in winter. Go to
Mm.
Afriski, have a holiday there, and just experience those. That's the thing. Like within the continent alone, we've got so many of the experiences that are like can just give you a taste of what a further away place could. And then once you feel
Mm.
confident, once you feel like, okay, I've got this routine down, I know what to do, I'm very confident about traveling
Yeah.
with the kid, then you can take the leap and then go even further and just test yourself and your family. And you'll see the fruits of your labor, the work that you put into your kids to be able to not only tolerate travel but really enjoy it, like find what makes each
Mm.
kid enjoy being part of the travel. Like for example, for my daughter Melody, she really loves the whole experience, being immersed, like reading a book about the place, reading, like watching a movie
Mm.
about the place. But when she gets
Yeah.
there, she has an idea of it, whereas my son is all about the transportation. He's all about, are we taking a plane, are we going in a boat, are we are we going on the
Mm.
train, are we going on a bus? So for
Yeah.
him, oh, you're going on the car. So for him, it's like a little bit more like, okay, tailor it to where he wants to be, like on
Yeah.
transportation side. Book a train ticket for him when you get there. So he's like, okay, I'm on the
Yeah.
train, you know. So once you get all those things sorted, and then you'll be able to tell what kind of interests they have and incorporate that into the
Mm.
trips, the future trips that you have as a family, then you will go fine, great, because now everyone has something to look forward to, you know. Now if you
Yeah.
one of you loves food, you incorporate like maybe a cooking class or an eating a tour for them, and the other person
Yeah.
likes to sleep. You make sure that they get maybe the day off. One day you take the kids to the beach and
Yeah.
let them sleep in, you know. So yeah, you eventually you'll get to the point where sleep on your bed. You'll get to the point where everyone is pretty much like having the best holiday that they can as a family.
Mm. Okay, so we mustn't look further. We must start with what we have.
Oh
Just
yeah,
look around, look what you
SA
love, and
SA
then
is the
start
best.
with what you have around your city, your country,
Mhm.
your continent before you can even go to other continents or other countries.
Yeah, I mean the
Okay, that's a
Eastern
smart
Cape.
advice.
Yeah, the Eastern Cape, which is one of the most underrated, provinces. I grew up in the Eastern Cape. I used to, for holidays, my family and I would go to Port St. John's. We'd go to, there's a little a little beach town called Imboki in Lusigisigi. It's kind of like,
Mm.
it's like otherworldly. It's surrounded by
Yeah.
mountains. It's like beautiful.
Yeah.
And it's
Mm.
remote. You hardly ever see a lot of people there. But we used to drive with my aunts and go there for like Christmas or school holidays. And it was
Yeah.
such
Yeah.
fun. And it's so, so beautiful.
Mm.
And it literally, you feel like you're not in South Africa. That's how it's like
Mm.
so out of there, you know? So
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
you think
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
there's places that it's like, I know South Africa, I've discovered everything, but there's,
Yeah.
especially with social media, like people that are travel creators and content creators are constantly like sharing all these beautiful hidden gems in SA. Follow them,
Mm.
see what they're sharing, see, oh, this is a beautiful waterfall, it's here.
Yes.
Let me go there, let me take my
Let me go
kids,
there and
yeah,
experience that.
and
Yeah.
experience it.
No, start at home. That's a good advice. Good advice. And now, how do you integrate traveling and school? And this is
So
more of a homeschool mom asking,
yeah.
because
Yeah,
you're now thinking to justify taking the time off from
yeah.
school, or like how to integrate that. Do you plan your trips and you say, okay, on this trip, this is what you're going to do. That will be educational for the child, or how do you integrate? How do you hang that?
So honestly, for me, the kids are so small. Like I never thought that far for them yet. It was very much about enjoying it and like being
Yes.
the experience and things. But
Yeah.
I love, 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 love. I've seen so many parents taking the education of their kids into their own hands, especially on social media. It's like one of the things that I really, really love, and I would hope to do it maybe for a year when my kids are a little bit older, where we take
Mm.
a year off and just travel and experience life. I think it's so
Mm.
amazing. It's so edifying. It's so enriching for their lives. And I think my kids now, they would have fun for sure. But I think the appreciation of learning and traveling at the same time, they need to be a little bit bigger for that. And just like
Mm.
like I'd say in a more pivotal role in their life, maybe in their teenage years, that would be so perfect. So it's
Yeah.
such a, yeah, when I get to that age, I would love to just like let them travel and integrate the experiences
Mm.
with what's happening at school and just like real life. There is a family
Yes.
called the Almonds, or they're American, but they took a whole year with their teenage kids and they traveled all over the world. They came to South Africa, they went to
Mm.
Thailand, they went to China,
Mm.
they went to Vietnam, they went to Polynesia, they went everywhere. And the way that this lady did, she
Mm.
was homeschooling her kids basically along with the teachers of their school and just doing like a whole holistic kind of approach of teaching the
Mm.
kids and integrating the travel with the kids. She would make them
Yeah.
read books written by authors in that country specifically when it comes to literature. She would
Wow.
also make them write essays about experiences with either about animals
Mm.
or cultural things.
Yeah.
The son did like a separate thing where he went to Taiwan and learned Mandarin for a month. So you can
Mm.
do such cool things. And one of the okay, just not that. One of the cool things is that also in some countries they've got these classes. You can do like cooking
Yeah.
classes. You can enroll your
Yeah.
kids for the cooking class for the duration of your time there. You can in art classes, so many things.
Yeah.
Yeah, the homeschooling it would be ideal, but for me, I think I just feel like they would have a much more they would gain more when they're a bit older in terms of that because now you're
Mm.
actually integrating what they see in the textbook in the classroom to real
Yes.
life, you see.
Mm.
My kids are just
Mm.
learning like the basics right now.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. So they're already a few steps ahead from their peers because they've experienced life. They've seen things. They've
yeah, for sure.
when you talk about something for them, it's not just from a book or maybe from
Yeah,
cartoons. It's
it's not
something that they've
abstract. Yeah,
they've
yeah.
lived. Yeah, yeah. And we are wrapping it up now. If you were.
Pass me the remote. All right,
You've been
because this
hinting that
child
you're no
is
longer in South
wild.
Africa. You're no longer in South Africa, so you're no longer home.
Yeah.
How has your abroad experience been since relocation? Like now, when you compare it, when you were traveling with your children, to now when you relocated altogether,
Yeah. Sure. Different beast. I think also,
is it?
sometimes we have an idea of places when you are at home and you want to travel there. And then you're there as a tourist, and it's
Yes.
a completely different experience because obviously you're not going to you're not having a lived experience. You're not going
Yeah.
to people where people live and living there. You may be going to a hotel or an
Yes.
Airbnb, and you're going obviously to the touristy areas and you're trying out the food or whatever the case may be.
Yes.
Like
Yes.
living here now, being in whatever, the house, taking the public
Yes.
transport, being there. Like
Yes.
you one of the people, basically. Like there's no people don't even
Yes.
blink twice. They're just thinking, oh, this person is just going to work or whatever. So
Yes.
it's a
Yes.
completely different experience because now you have to integrate with the environment, with the people, with whatever the culture is of that country. You are now seeing the system as it is,
Mm.
as how it works. That you're seeing basically how the sausage is made. Usually if you go into the place, you just take the sausage, you go home, you cook it. Now you're in there, you're in
Yes.
the back with the butcher. You're seeing
Yeah.
him put all the bones. You're seeing him put, I don't know, a pig's snout in there. You see the good and the
Yeah.
bad and everything in between, because now you're
Mm.
seeing real life. So that's the difference. You're basically getting to see the real country or whatever, the real town that you're living in.
Mm.
You now you have to put up garbage. The kids need
Yeah.
to go to school. You have a routine. So there's a lot of culture shocks involved when it comes to that.
Okay.
Your
Yeah.
idea, I think a lot of the world also, we have this idea of North America because we watch a lot of movies, and it can kind of be like kind of a movie in our head because we see it so often. We believe this is how it actually is.
Yeah.
This is because we've never actually been here, and we think, "Ah, this is how Americans are, this is how they work." But once you're here, you're now in North America and you're seeing the real lives of people. You see how they're not so different. Everyone wakes up and they go to work and they take their kids to school. Maybe they
Yeah.
have a little bit more security, they have maybe better roads, they've got
Mm.
electricity, they've got
Mm.
water.
Okay. Okay.
But
No
essentially
load
we all,
shedding there.
yeah. Essentially,
Okay.
we're all waking up, taking our kids to work, I mean, to school, and we're going to work and, yeah, trying to make a living, but at the same time, just like enjoying
Mm.
our environment, our new environment, and trying to explore it as much as we can. Yeah,
Mm. Mm. And do you think the experience that you have as a family traveling helped in the transition?
it definitely did. I think
Mm.
also, like I mentioned to you before, like our families are in KZN and in the Eastern Cape. So that kind
Mm.
of helped in terms of like our kids weren't really like seeing family every single day. So they were used to the video calls.
Oh
They were used to,
yeah.
seeing their cousins like once a twice a
Yes,
year. And
yes,
then with
yes,
COVID, there was
yes,
also that period of 2 years when they were really small. They didn't go
yes.
anywhere. We couldn't go see family. So
Mm,
that helped in terms of like they really just know that me and my husband and friends, that's who they usually see,
mm,
which is
mm.
really helpful. And like I mentioned, in terms of flying, like if you fly with your kids often, then it's not such a big difference
Yes,
in terms of just
yes.
being in the airplane and sitting there. Granted, now we had to take like a whole 20-hour flight, but it went really
But you've
surprisingly
already,
really
you've been
smooth.
exercising that muscle with them,
Mm,
starting with the
yeah,
small
yeah.
flights.
Yeah, they'd done
Mm,
8, they'd done 10 here and there. So now a
mm,
combination of 20 hours wasn't that bad. We had to do a lot of like, they did a lot of sleeping, funny enough. I don't know why that was. They slept a lot of hours of sleep, and then like
yeah.
just doing the activities in between. So everything kind of prepped us for the move. It's not to say that if you haven't traveled, you won't be able to do a move like this, because my husband's brother and his wife just moved to the UK in February before we did, and they had never traveled a lot with their kids, and their kids
Mm,
did really well. And they had twin girls, and they like 2 years old, and they did really really well. And I think that's because
mm.
they prepped them. You have to kind of just prep the kids and make sure they are
Yes.
comfortable in the flight. And we always
Mm,
like to choose the night flights as well, if you can, if it's possible. Choose a night flight,
mm.
because that will help at least manage some few hours where the kids are actually sleeping and it's not too
Yes.
terrible.
Yes, 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 yes. Ah, Iviwe, it's been so nice talking to you. I've learned a lot and I'm taking a lot of tips, and I believe people who are watching are also inspired by what you do. And for those who don't know or maybe who don't follow you, I will leave the links in the description box. Like I said, they can go and see the amazing trips that you've been doing with your children, with your family, and also see some tips, because I saw on your Instagram page it's not just pictures.
Mhm.
There's like a background story, and you share those tips on things that, some of the things that maybe you might not think about before you
Yeah.
plan your trip. So going through your social media, someone might get an idea like, oh, okay, and also after watching this was very informative. And thank you so much for your time and for sharing your family experience with us. And for someone now who wants to connect with you, how do people connect with you?
Thank you for inviting me as well. I am only on Instagram because I have no capacity for any other social media platform. And I've tried. I've really, really tried. I've tried to put myself on all these other ones. It's always like such a
Yeah.
fail because I just can't keep up with everything.
Yeah. Yeah, it can
It
be
just
too
doesn't
much.
happen. Yo, I try so much. But yeah,
Yes.
honestly, I think also what's good, what I love about Instagram as well is like you can kind of find a family that has a similar style or setup with you. Let's say you've got
Yes.
4 kids and or 5 kids or 6 kids, you can kind of find a family that has a similar setup to you. And
Yes.
maybe there's a
Yes.
family, they like the beach, they go to beach only holidays, some like the
Mm.
hotel, some like the city. You
Mm.
can kind of just
Mm.
look through. And one of the tricks that I usually use is if I see a traveling family account on Instagram, I'll go to who they following. Pro tip,
Oh.
go to who they following and just like
Mm.
look at those families, because chances are if you're a travel family you're going to be following other families. So go under that travel
Mm. So
family
that's
and
where they get maybe their
look.
inspiration.
For sure.
Ah.
And then look at the family that you feel like has more information that you prefer, or they share more of a style
Mm.
of travel that you like. Because some
Yes.
families do like to travel to 10 countries or whatever, this and that. But some families like a little bit more of a slow thing where they go for a month in one place and have an actual lived
Mm.
experience of the place, slow traveling. And they
Mm.
pay rent, they go to the grocery store, they have an actual thing. They don't just spend a week there. They have a whole month
Yeah.
and it's a little
Yeah.
bit more different. So you can kind of find your tribe, as so to say, in on Instagram, which is why I think it's one of the social media platforms that I have basically stayed at and gravitated towards instead of trying all the other ones. I feel like they're a bit too fast for me.
Yeah.
So I like this one. It's like slow pace. You can look for the families that inspire you. You can look at the things that you enjoy as well, saying,
Yeah.
and follow those people specifically. So that's a really good way. And I regularly go to the people that I follow and go look at who they're following and find new families that way as well, because that's a really good way to see
Ah.
people that are
It
like-minded.
is. It's a
Mm,
smart way. It's a smart way without you spending hours and hours on the app. That
mm,
once you find someone with similar interests, and then you see who are they following, because
yeah,
most likely you'll find people that you're gonna, wow, that's a
yeah,
smart, that's a smart way to save time that we spend on these apps, obviously.
yeah. Yeah, you don't want to be there
Yeah.
the whole day.
Yes, yes. Iviwe, thank you so much for your time, and thank you for everyone who's watching. And if people are inspired and they want to follow you, they want to ask questions. I mean, there was so much more that we could talk about, like food, and there's so much to think about.
Yeah,
Hey, I'm
it's a
just thinking
lot.
now when you're
It's a
traveling with
lot.
kids, food, medication,
Medication.
and so
But
forth. So there's
honestly,
just so much.
a quick word on the medication part. I would say that unless your kids have a specific medication, like a prescription that they have to carry, we've always
Mm,
ever carried like Panadol, so it's suppositories because they work really, really well, and then like some
mm,
kind of anti-diarrhea. You know, those
mm,
two
mm,
there are
mm.
always great with kids because if they have a fever, then you can just give them the paracetamol or the Panadol, and the suppositories work really well because they work fast, and they're
Yes,
quite
yes,
small, so you
yes.
can kind of take them and all those
Yes,
things. It's not
yes.
liquid. Then with the
Mm,
anti-diarrhea, sometimes they'll eat something they're not used to, and then they'll have an upset stomach, and they would have to drink that. But most of the airports, they
mm,
know children's medication. You just put it in a clear bag, go through security, and they'll let you go through with that. So those are the two that we always
mm.
carry. Other than that, like most of the time, there will be a pharmacy around, so you'll be able to get
Yeah.
whatever it is that you need. And always, always, if you're going to be traveling with kids, have travel insurance that will help you if something happens and it's an emergency and then your kid will have to go to hospital. At least you know that you're covered in that sense. You have travel
Yes.
insurance.
Smart. Okay, if there's so much to talk about, and
I
I
know.
think I
We could
will.
talk here for all day.
I should
But yeah.
definitely invite you for another episode where we just go deeper and discuss these things in detail, because it's
Mm-hmm.
much easier when we learn from people who have experienced it rather than we go hit the wall ourselves and then come back, and with all the bruises.